And sometimes I find that we stay there because it's easier just to unpack our bags and the mess of it all and throw ourselves a good old-fashioned pity party. Give me the hall pass, baby. Like, you get a hall pass for life. And oh, by the way, excuse.
You said, I'm always fired up, but I want to zoom in on this because we'll get into your story here, but I just want to ask straight away, what did it feel like in the moment when you realized when you couldn't rah-rah your way through and get fired up, when your faith wasn't going to save you from pain, but instead it was going to carry you through it? Take us back. What happened?
So something that I have had to learn over the years of experiences, and one that we'll dive into here, God does not promise to deliver us from hardships. He promises to deliver us through them. And so when I think about life, that white picket fence is like what everybody thinks about, dreams about. And I grew up with that white picket fence, everything but the white picket fence around my house, at least in my thoughts, at least in my journey, my perspective. Because I grew up in a household where I had two very loving parents that loved me, loved my brother, took care of us, cheered us on, biggest cheerleaders, made sure we had everything we needed to succeed. But underneath it all, things were unraveling in such a way that, number one, it was a progression, but things started to unravel very quickly. But in the silent, in the darkness, and where nobody could see it, including me, including my brother, including my family, those closest to us. And I think that's where my faith was really tested in so many ways. Because let me put it this way. So it's my mom, my dad, my older brother Alan, and I mentioned the white picket fence, right? We're athletes, we're sports, we're doing all the things. I was a gymnast that was destined to earn a college scholarship, and that was the goal, that was the dream, and I was well on my way. And my brother was well on his way to a career in the Navy. He wanted to follow in my father's footsteps. And so we are doing life. We were a church-going family. Faith was a big part of our family. I still have the book of these inspirational quotes. My mom would get these little Hallmark cards. You can get them at the Hallmark store that would have, different sayings, like footprints in the sand was my absolute favorite. And then scriptures and different things. And I would put these into baseball sleeves, those baseball card sleeves. And that would be my foundation before gymnastics meets. Just in life, I would pull that thing out and read through them and read them aloud with my parents sitting on the edge of my bed. And we would say our prayers together. And we would go to church, and when times would be challenging, because in life, there's always challenging times, I was always you talk about the rah-rah, I was the rah-rah, I was rah-rahing my way through life. Hey, just say your prayers. Things are going to get better. Life's difficult. Things are going to get better. Don't worry, Dad. Things are going to get better, until they didn't. And so I go to college on gymnastics scholarship, thinking all right, I'm living my dream, not just my dream, my parents' dream. And I'm studying for exams. I'm doing the gymnastics in the school and pursuing a degree. I wanted to be a sports doctor, all the things. Things are going as scripted. And then I pick up the phone and I call my parents like I always did. We always had conversations. They lived 8 hours away. So when I was at Rutgers, by the way, the State University of New Jersey, that I want to let everybody know, was the birthplace of college football. So, we weren't always the best
Not
football
South
team
Bend,
in the world.
Indiana. Come on,
yeah,
Lauren.
right.
Go
I always
Irish.
have to let people know that, especially because I live in Alabama, where it's national championship country, So college football is king around here. So, I'm at Rutgers, living it up, doing the dream, doing everything. Called my parents, had a conversation like I always did. It was upbeat. I talked to my mom about gymnastics. My dad just celebrated his 52nd birthday. I was a little disappointed because it's the first time in my life, like, I didn't get to celebrate with him. But he's like, you're coming home this summer. We're going to have all the time to celebrate in the world. And life is good, right? And then we hang up the phone, talk to my roommate for a few more minutes, set my alarm clock, and drift off to sleep. And next thing you know, I wake up to my phone ringing, and my dad tells me that my mom died. And I was just like, what? Like, what do you mean mom died? Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, it's the middle of the night. Like, you know, I just talked to mom. She's 45 years old. Like, what happened? And my dad was like, I can't explain it now. I need you to get on the next plane you can, and I'll be at the airport to pick you up. And I show up to the airport. Hadn't talked to my dad for hours. He had to go to the hospital, take care of things. Like, okay, I'm going to see my dad soon. And instead of him coming to pick me up, it was my cousin and my uncle who had to deliver the news that he too had passed away.
To the extent you're comfortable, will you unpack that short duration of time? Because the question I'm asking is, what in the world?
Yeah. The short period of time before both, in between my parents passing, right? So there's a lot.
You get off
the
phone with your dad. You get
Yeah.
off the phone with your dad. You're expecting to see him at the airport, and he doesn't show up.
Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting because I'm going to share this story. We are now 22 years plus removed from their passing. I just want you to know, and we will unpack this, I know, later, but this took years of discovery, years of figuring it out, years of finding out, uncovering, deciphering what happened. And it really took me having the courage to write a book and to go deep and to investigate, like, what happened. Because, oh, by the way, there's toxicology reports that come out 90 days after they die, in which my aunt goes into the coroner's office because I refused. She comes out with a manila envelope and says, hey, do you want to read these? And I said, no. So they go onto the floorboard of the car and they don't get opened up for 10 years. 10 years because I was so terrified of what those reports were going to say, and I was going to have to acknowledge the truth, which is both of my parents died of prescription drug overdoses. So what transpired in those 5 hours, my dad woke up in the middle of the night, and he always fell asleep on the couch. It was pretty typical. And he got up to go into the bedroom, and my mom wasn't there. And he starts searching the house. She's nowhere to be found. He walks outside and finds my mom out on the porch, slumped over, not breathing. So, of course, his initial reaction was, okay, what do I need to do to save her life? So he pulls her into the house. He's going to draw a bath so that he can, the whole urban, it's really an urban legend. It's a myth. It really does not work, but shock her back, bring her back to life, do chest compressions, whatever he can to try to save her. Because we lived out in the country, so medical response team, 20, 25 minutes at best to get someone out there. So he knew, like, okay, got to do something. His something did not work, and therefore he calls 911. They show up. And at this point, she was already long gone. There was nothing, and even in his efforts, I don't believe, according to people we have talked to since this occurrence and this day, that could have saved her life. And so he obviously goes to the hospital to take care of things with my mom. At this point, they have pronounced her dead. And then he comes back home as the hours have passed to make these phone calls, get in touch with me, get in touch with my brother who was stationed in Norfolk, Virginia. He was in the military. So he's doing all these things to get us on a plane and get us home, get my brother in the car on his way home. And from what I understand is he was at the hospital and they didn't really think, they thought, they were, they saw a man that was obviously in distress because, this is someone that, just lost his wife, right? And so he's at the house. Someone from LifeNet calls to discuss with him my mom's situation, organ donation, also trying to help get my brother home. So there's a whole slew of events happening. But meanwhile, my dad's at home doing everything he can to get us home, me and my brother. And while he's on the phone with LifeNet, he excuses himself from the phone and collapses. And at that point, the person on the other end of the phone could hear heavy breathing, snoring, loud breathing. So she then hangs up and calls the, 911 on the other end to, the sheriff's department in Giles County where we were at, and tells them that there must be an emergency. And at that point, we're talking again another 20-25 minutes ticks by, and by the time they get to the house, he has already passed away. So just a long, drawn-out chain of events that got us to the end result, which is both of my parents dying of fentanyl overdoses.
Do you remember your first move in that moment? Your soul is in shock, hearing his voice tell you that your mom had passed. You're in a state of shock. You anticipate his arrival. That never happens. Walk me through that moment inside your psyche and in your heart. How do you even put words to that?
It's really interesting going there, because I will say this. Every bit of what happened that day, and really the hours, even days, months following that, are so fragmented.
Sure, of course. Yeah, sure.
And trying to piece that together has been, it's been incredible. Because here's the thing, my therapist explained it, when you in life, our memory is somewhat fragmented, but especially when trauma is involved, all of a sudden it's flash frame, and then all of a sudden it's like black hole. And so even thinking about that, I have to take myself back to certain parts of that story. And it's I remember being, in my dorm room when I got the call. I remember being on the floor for a moment when my roommate comes over. Now, and again, she's also helping me recount some of these things. She starts shaking me. Laurie, you're having a nightmare. Wake up. And that's when I told her my mom died. And then for the next few hours, we're frantically calling the airline. Because mind you, this is before you just log onto an app and book a plane ticket. There is no Lyft and Uber. So I'm having to get a ride, have to go wake up my friend in the middle of the night that has a car on campus to get me to the airport. There's so many things that have to happen for me to even get on that plane. Right? I'm not, it's just, thing after thing after thing after thing. And y'all, mind you, I'm 18 years old. I'm still a kid. I had maybe $50 in my bank account. Didn't know how to write a check at this point. I am literally oblivious. And oh, by the way, that's going to be $250 to get me home. And I didn't have that kind of money. So, my roommate's having to book the plane ticket with her emergency credit card. There was just this whole chain of events. So I feel like that piece of it was so fragmented, but it was just this gut punch. I just remember when he said that to me, I was just like, wait, what? And it's almost like your body is suspended for a moment in time. You feel this weightlessness, and then it's someone just drops you from a 80-foot building. What just happened, And then it's the frantic, then all of a sudden the adrenaline's kicking in, right? Just go, because now all I need my dad. I need him because at this point, he is the one constant in my life that I know I need right in this moment. And yet I'm still feeling like I'm a million miles away. And so then it's just get home. And it's crazy because on the way home, I hadn't communicated with him, and it kind of felt like all right, well, where's my dad? Like I was kind of worried, but at the same time, I'm just like, I just get me home. And so it's almost like this it's almost, and we talk about it a little bit in the book. Like I remember it's just like, I think I'm very conditioned to like move, go, next, like athlete. Okay, next, get back up. And I felt like that is what my body was telling me to do. And my brain was telling me to do. Like, just go.
You're in survival.
Yeah. And again, like at this point, you know, I'm in survival and it's like, just get me home to my dad. Because at this point, I just needed his embrace. I just needed him to tell me it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this together.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah.
What do you think the cost is to people who, and I don't think it was intentional, like who live in survival mode and that becomes chronic? And the reason I ask is because I'd like to use the manila envelope as a metaphor for our souls. So for 10 years, you didn't open that manila envelope. What happens when we don't face the truth of that quote-unquote manila envelope in the formation of our souls and we live in perpetual survival mode?
Oof. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it was survival mode, and it was literally running in the opposite direction of reality as far and as fast as I could. And it was in essence survival mode, because it was doing everything I could to not face the truth, first and foremost, that my parents aren't coming back. And then the second piece of that was the nature of their passing, right? And, for me, there was such a shame attached to it and a stigma that, like, I knew that I had to do everything I could to protect their legacy at all costs. And their legacy also meant my legacy, right? I'm tied to them. And it was like everything I could do to just ensure that, like, anything that could potentially harm their reputation can't be discussed, can't be talked about. So it was literally just putting them on a pedestal. And pedestal right here, constant, right? We're on a pedestal. And doing everything I could to avoid the reality. And so I just found myself living in a world, because I've always been the optimist. Like, I'm always optimistic. And even in
is
the
it
wake
always
of,
real though?
It's interesting you say that. Yes, it is real. But in recent years, and maybe even more recently, after experiencing the loss of my brother in November, I'm carrying a weight that is more profound, because I now find myself waiting in it instead of running from it. But I'm actually grateful for that, because I do feel like in life, we just avoid that manila envelope, just like you said. And I love that thought process, because, like, the avoidance piece can be so exhausting. Like in life, and I've thought about this, like, you see these crazy movies. Gosh, what was that movie called? Catch Me If You Can. I think, was that Leonardo DiCaprio?
Tom Hanks, one of the most brilliant movies.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Tom Hanks. Yeah.
Yep.
Was it Leonardo DiCaprio wasn't in that one?
No, he was. He was the perpetrator.
He was the perpetrator. Okay. Yes. Yes. So it's crazy, because I remember watching that movie and thinking to myself, like, some people work harder to not do work, or work harder to escape, than they do to just, like, walk through it, right? Like, they're working harder.
Say more. Get under that principle.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, so I just think, and I can't remember when I watched that movie, and to me, it just, like, hit me. I'm like, how is it that some people put more work into avoidance, put more work, like, he literally worked harder to not have to work and to make the money like the right way, the legit way, the legal way. And I oftentimes, and I think for me, being in the world of addiction and advocacy, I see that a lot in, take out obviously the prescription piece of it. I mean, people are on the streets getting drugs all the time and, working in ways that aren't necessarily ethical. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how do we get to a place where we work harder to not have to work, to not have to feel, to not have to walk through? Like, I think we work harder to avoid than to just walk through it. And I think I feel that way in relationships too. Because here's the thing, I think a lot of times, like when we walk through relationships and like, sometimes it's easier to just keep the Band-Aid on than to just rip it off and roll through it. And I think that we a lot of times just stay in a situation, maybe a volatile situation, an abusive situation, a very tough, challenging situation, a toxic situation. I'm talking about relationships across the board. And sometimes I find that we stay there because it's easier just to unpack our bags in the mess of it all and throw ourselves a good old-fashioned pity party.
And what happens when we throw a pity party continually in the formation of our identity? What is it? No, that's not rhetorical. I'm like,
give me the hall pass, baby. Like, you get a hall pass for life. And oh, by the way, excuse. Like, let me tell you, talk about the hall pass. Dude, I used to flash that thing around when I went back to Rutgers. So I went back to Rutgers 2 weeks after my parents died. My Auntie Linda, my mom's sister, who, amazing woman, like stepped in, her and my Uncle Mike both, stepped in and really like took over, helped me to get back on my feet in so many ways. But like, she literally was like, time to go back to school. And I'm like, okay, like, how am I going to survive and go back to school? I need space. I need time. And she's like, nope, you got a commitment to yourself, your university, your teammates. You got to go back. And I'm like, okay. So I go back to school, 2 weeks after my parents passed away. And I can just tell you that literally that hall pass I was flashing every time that I decided I didn't want to train, didn't want to practice. Oh, I didn't do good on that test. I didn't study. Oh, that's because I spent all last night crying. I'm just, I had a tough time. And, my parents died. So people will understand that. And they'll give me space and they'll give me time. And they'll, so it's like, all right. But it's like I started flashing that hall pass around. So instead of like recognizing that the dreams that I had are now literally shattering into a million pieces, I looked at it like, well, of course they are. Of course. That's what else would happen? Like your parents died. Like, what else do you expect? Until I realized, and until I really got some of that tough love, especially from my gymnastics coach that was like, hey, like, we got to do something about this, or like, we can't keep you in school. Like, you're not making the grades. Like, we can't keep you on scholarship. Like, everything is starting to like unravel. And that's when it was like, I think it's time for me to figure this out.
I've said this a bunch on the podcast, and in a way, what I hear you saying is that there is the pain of change. There is the pain of regret. So pick your hard.
Ooh, yes. Pick your hard. Yes. Pain of change and pain of regret. Ooh, I like that. Pick your hard.
The reason I bring that up is because earlier you said regarding your parents, I had to protect their legacy. Anger is a key part of the grief process. Talk to me about if there was any, in your healing process, you realized any resentment toward them. Like, I'm 18. I shouldn't have to be doing this.
Oh, anger was for sure there. Like, woo. That's the crazy part too, is like, because in grief, it's the sorrow, it's the sadness. But anger and resentment definitely percolated. And in so many ways, because it was percolating at the why me? Hey God, like,
Yeah, two angles. Yeah.
why? Like, we are a good family. We have good hearts. We have good souls. We go to church. We say our prayers. Like, why? So that literally brings us right back to where you started this whole conversation at, right? Then the second layer of that is like, mom and dad, why did this get out of control? Why did you not speak up? Why did you allow this to happen? Why did you... Literally, my dad read online that you could put the fentanyl patch in the freezer and suck on it and get the immediate high that a prescription drug will give you if you chemically alter it. He read that online, knew the risks, and did it anyways. So like the 18-year-old me, 19-year-old me, 20-year-old me, as I'm like unpacking some of this, look, I didn't know anything about addiction. Like, I knew my dad struggled with alcoholism growing up, but I didn't know what that meant other than like he'd go on a weekend bender and, all right, you know, dad's drinking again, but 2 days from now we'll be back to where we started, so it's no big deal. We'll get through it. I just didn't understand addiction and the significant impact it can have on individuals for a lifetime, and just the absolute battle that has to be fought in order to keep yourself in the win column day in and day out. And so for me, that was like, you know, 18, 19, 20-year-old me is going through the anger, and really I had zero understanding of my parents and what they were walking through, like zero.
Did you feel like you were forced in a way to grow up too quickly? Not in a victim identity type of way. In other words, at 40, looking back, do you have any times in your life where you think it shouldn't have been this fast? I missed XYZ, or does any of that happen?
Oh, well, I'll tell you this. This is the primo prime example right here. So I love my therapist. She's great. Shout out to Neely Haynes. She's the best. But it's really funny because not only do I think in many ways I was forced to grow up very quickly, my husband has had to live through that with me, because in relationships, we become a product of our circumstances. We become, like, literally, there are so many things that I do in life that now in my therapy journey, a lot of times I'm really just trying to unpack, like, let's really get to the root of this thing versus just let's solve or fix how I'm feeling right now. Like, let's go way back and figure this thing out. And it's funny because, like, in the way I communicate, the way I do life, I have always operated. So I've been married. We just celebrated our 5-year anniversary. And it's interesting because in so many ways, like, you know, and I've just put it out there, like, you know, my husband and I share the finances. We do everything like as a unit, as one. So it's not like we're on like two separate tracks here. But in so many ways in my brain, my thought processes are always like, I've got to provide, I've got to go to work, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I can't ask for help, me, I've got to do it myself. And even my husband, when my brother passed away, helped me to see this thing. He said, you know, you're very inward focused. And that does not mean selfish, but inward focus means, like, I even put so much of the regret on myself. Well, maybe if I would have done more, I could have helped my brother more. Maybe if I would have said more, I could help my parents more. And all of a sudden, it's like, instead of looking at the grand scope, broad scope, I am putting everything on myself as if I am the almighty Lauren Sisler that is just going to heal the world and save everybody and do all the things, and then also take all the blame and the weight when things go wrong, when adversity strikes. Woo! And that was profound. I was like, oh, wow. Like, I think the root of a lot of this is because I've been bearing the weight for so many years without realizing that, like, I mean, yes, I've had help along the way, by all means, but, like, I haven't really asked for a lot of help, and I'm just kind of like, all right, next step, put the foot in front of the other, go.
Okay, then answer this to the extent you want. What's the manila envelope you haven't opened yet? The proverbial manila envelope, the one that stares at you every day.
That is really good, because I do think it's something I'm still unpacking a lot of.
I don't mean to turn this into therapy, but I just know a lot of folks are gonna learn and can receive help from this.
I love a good therapy session, man. I love this. So what is the manila envelope? I think for me, like, my greatest weakness is understanding my own value, my own worth. And in so many ways, like, I am very terrified at times to get to the other side and feel less than, that I haven't delivered, that I haven't given enough, that I haven't been enough, that I haven't people pleased enough, that I haven't saved enough lives, I think I am terrified at failure. I'm terrified that I'm not enough. I'm terrified, because I'll tell you this, I think this is where I can equate it. And this is probably what I'm walking through currently. So obviously I released my book in October. Dude, I literally postponed the release of that book 3 or 4 times. Now, I had a child.
You told me that. Yeah, you told me that last time. Yeah.
I had a child in the midst of it, so I had, some reasons. But I think deep down in my soul, I was terrified of what if nobody cares? What if nobody listens? What if this is all for nothing? And so sometimes it's easier just to write the book and leave it on the shelf. I've written the book, but let's just leave it on the shelf and don't worry about what the response is. And I think I'm using that not just the book form itself, but just in life. I am sometimes terrified to just put myself out there, because what if nobody cares?
What if nobody cares, Lauren?
Yeah. And it's I'm putting so much value.
No, that was a question.
I'm pondering it right now. What if nobody cares?
It's funny you said what you did, and I'll unpack sort of what I'm thinking, but I want to give you a second to sit with that, because it's interesting how similar a lot of what you're sharing is, how relevant it is to me. Yeah, what if no one cares? Are you okay with that?
Well, it's interesting, because I think I try to convince myself, talk myself into the fact, well, hey, if I only and again, I'm just using the book as a metric based thing. If I only sell 100 copies.
It represents something that's existential in a way.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And it's if I only sell 100 copies, it's not, I literally kept telling myself, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, not a sprint, it's a marathon. And yet I still kept finding myself trapped in that, are we doing the right things? Am I, rejection runs so high. Oh my gosh, having a PR team helping me to get the word out. And it's how many times do you get pitched to something and get told, oh, not today. Nope, not interested. Oh, we're actually interested, but not now. And then you come back again. And it's oh, not now, later. Holy crap. Rejection is so real. And you know what it took me back to? It took me back to my recruiting days in gymnastics. You send your recruiting tape all over the country, 50 plus tapes. And I'm okay. You were literally that is what committing to being a Division I athlete with scholarship dreams and hopes. I am literally committing myself to the biggest age of an era of rejection on the planet. Like just putting myself out there and waiting letter after letter, reject. Oh, no, like, nope, not good enough. I need to see this. You're not doing enough. Nope, we gave it to someone else. All the things. And literally to the bitter end that Rutgers calls and says, hey, we got one offer left. Take it or leave it. And it's just like, whew, like rejection, man. That's the manila envelope, dude. I'd rather leave it sitting in that manila envelope than to pull out the piece of paper that says like rejection. Like just don't even tell me. Like that's why that book sat on the shelf for so long. Written, finished.
If it sits in the manila envelope, it doesn't have access to wound you like life has.
Yes. Woo! Woo! Dude, do you do this for a living?
I'm working on it.
That's good.
So
this is so profound, my friend. Oh.
Really? Yeah.
We need to create a course on this. Like we need to create some sort of curriculum on this, dude.
Well, we'll just let's keep texting here after the conversation. Let's think, because I have ideas aside from even this, but I want to take this a little deeper. Talk to me then, because this, when you were talking about curating an image. Talk to me about the pressure to perform and curate your image as armor to continue to protect yourself from a very unpredictable, unsafe life. Because we don't get to face adversity, nor the Lord, with a PR team.
Ooh.
Because Lauren Sisler, with a microphone in her hand and a camera on her face, can curate something, and editing allows us to curate, and you have your broadcast persona, and it's awesome and it's real. But we don't get to transpose that to life. And this is hitting me square in the heart, because I used to walk around when I was 3 years old with a microphone in my hand, and all I ever wanted to do with my life was broadcast. And here I am with a microphone in front of my face, and the Lord in this season of life has led me into the wilderness to be tested and trained, where I can't bring an image. I can't curate my image for the world to hear and see. I can't hide behind words, and I don't get to edit my way through adversity. That's why I asked Lauren. It's deeply personal for me too.
Ooh. I love that. You can't edit your way through adversity. Ooh.
No, there's no way.
Ooh.
Because it doesn't form us. It doesn't grow us. If we try to curate an image through adversity, we don't get the lesson we need to grow.
Yeah, no growing. Like literally none whatsoever. Oh my gosh. Okay, ask me the question. I want to take me to the question again. Because,
yeah,
wow,
sure.
I'm like literally this is so good. Oh.
Yeah, the question is this. I want to create maybe a thesis for folks. I want you to talk to me about the pressure that you put on yourself to perform and curate an image as armor to continue to protect yourself in an unsafe, unpredictable life.
Oh, yeah, the armor. Ooh, 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 ooh.
The metaphor, of course, is what you do for a living.
Yep.
And it would be easy to think lights on, makeup on, lines ready, it's on, and I can curate this. Because when you're on the sidelines on ESPN game day or whatever, you can be whoever you want to be for the moment. That's going to be good for the audience. But as we've been saying here, when it comes to adversity, you don't get editing. You don't get to bring a PR team into the mix. That's what I'm after. A curated image as armor to protect you from a safe and unpredictable life.
Yeah. Well, I think when you curate that, because in life, we put out the image that we feel like is the most liked, the most loved, and ultimately that becomes like the shield to all the things that could potentially go wrong, or all the hate that you could receive, or all the dislike, or the, here's the thing I'm going to say. I walked through this, and this is such, like, I think this hits this example so well. I'm going to try to get through this. I'm also not going to apologize for my emotions, because here we go.
And we can edit. I want you to know, my friend, we can
Yeah.
edit anything out that you don't want to go live.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. So you and I did talk offline about my brother and his passing that came in November. So we released the book in October. It was like the high of highs and then suddenly the low of lows. And I told you, I said, like, I thought for sure that I had that suit of armor on. And when I'm talking about armor in this case, it's the grief armor. Because I had walked through, like, the absolute, like, just depths of, like, grief with losing my parents. And I'm like, okay, like, this thing happened with my brother. Like, I'm gonna be fine. I got this, right? I got this. And quickly learned, like, no, I ain't got this. And, my brother had battled with some health issues, for several years, and it's something I am still unpacking. And so one day I hope to be able to really, like, unpack and share more deeply the struggles and battles he went through. As a man that was in the military, someone that struggled with a lot of PTSD, someone that was a God-fearing man that yet through it all, much like we're talking about right now, I think a lot of times was afraid to go and open up that manila envelope. Oof, that's going to resonate with me for a while. So that brings me to, you talk about curating, like, the lines for the sideline, putting yourself together. So I took 1 week off when my brother passed away. We are knee deep in football season. And, I talked to my husband about it. He's like, it might do you some good to get back out there to kind of just establish a little sense of normalcy. So I go back, and he travels with me. He brings Mason, because they don't always they don't travel with me often because it's just a lot. But, for that support. And I remember, oh gosh, I remember being out on that field and just feeling so disconnected. And I remember even my producer getting in my ear and saying, hey, you doing okay down there? We're letting you ease back into this and get your feet under you, like get your legs back. So, taking it easy on the broadcast. But I remember before walking out on that field, as I was preparing for the day, for the evening, a dear friend of mine that I work with, a colleague who is in recovery, has walked the walk, has fought a lot of personal battles. He said to me, oh, I'll never forget it. He said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you're having to walk through this loss. I'm so sorry that you're having to walk through this pain again in your life. He said, here's the thing, like, you chose to show up today, and you're going to put that IFB in. You're going to walk out on that field. He's like, most people at home are never going to even be privy to the fact of the tremendous weight that you are carrying tonight. But you, my friend, can look at this as a personal victory. You walked out on that field. You showed up. You did your job to the best of your ability. And that is a personal victory. And I think that's when I realized, like, people don't have to see me. They don't have to see what I'm doing. They don't have to praise what I'm doing for me to have permission to celebrate a victory in my life. And that to me was, like, so profound. Like, why do we have to have everyone else in our world saying yes, giving you the good old high five and fist bump? Why are we not okay with being in a moment and celebrating a victory with me, myself, and the good Lord above? Like, why? Where did that part of our lives go? And I think it just brings us full circle to, like, that armor that you talk about, and like putting ourselves together in a way that people will see us versus just being okay with how we see ourselves.
Earlier in the conversation, we talked about rah-rah Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
How do we decouple ourselves from rah-rah Christianity as a value system that is actually and truthfully antithetical to the real Jesus?
Yeah, I mean, you and I talked about it, right? Like, we try to give off the image that if you believe, if you do this, if you do that, then in return, God will do this, God will give you that, and then you're bringing people into a world that just doesn't exist. You're giving the false hope, the false perception, once again, of, really conditional love in a lot of ways. Like, if you do this, I will give you this. And I think that is where we have to be so bold in, and I've even tried to like scratch out, because a lot of people say, oh, own your truth. No, like own the truth, right? Like we got to scratch out this whole concept of like, own your truth. Like, no, it's like there's the truth. And what does that truth look like, man? Like, okay, well, I'm glad you're telling me to go there, because it is something.
I hate that postmodern garbage.
Yeah. Because to me, it's like, oh, step into this. But no, like if you don't name it, then you're stuck once again. If you're naming your truth, then it brings you right back to where I was, because guess what? I was naming my truth for years by saying mom died from respiratory failure, dad died from a heart attack. Because in my brain, I literally had it in my mind, mom died of respiratory failure. That's a medical term, respiratory failure. I figured that, I don't know where I heard that, but I latched onto it. She stopped breathing. She went into cardiac arrest. Like, that happened, but I didn't name the how, the why, which was she ingested a lethal amount of fentanyl. Dad died of a heart attack. Well, yes, his heart stopped because he stopped breathing, because he too went into respiratory failure, because he too took a lethal amount of fentanyl. So I literally use this, like, and I probably use this because, number one, I love sugar. Like, I'm a sweets queen. And I always laugh about this.
What's your favorite thing?
Well, I will say, I mean, I love
Alabama.
Some ice cream. Like, I love, down here in Alabama, you know what's
That's
the favorite thing?
about.
White chocolate bread pudding, dude.
I actually have heard that.
Bring it. I had bread pudding. I'm like, ugh. That sounds like some, like, old school, like, mama, like, bread pudding. No, bring it. It's the best. But growing up, here's the thing. So I, like, take me to a carnival, dude, and I can mow down. Like, give me a foot-long corn dog and, like, every piece of junk food you can think of. And top it off with a funnel cake. But funnel cake, that funnel cake better not be some, it drives me nuts when you go to get a funnel cake and it's those ones that are, like, come out of a freezer that were, like,
you
know,
want the
made in
batter
a factory.
And the grease.
Yes, batter, grease, and the powdered sugar. So,
I
like,
can smell it right now.
Give me the powdered sugar.
Yeah.
And I literally got to where, like, I look back on my life for so many years, and you could literally draw a caricature of me, literally with the little, like, I don't even know the sifter of the powdered sugar.
Oh, yeah.
And literally sifting over my entire life, constant powdered sugar, sugar coat, sugar coat. That's me. That was me. Always. Constant.
Because you thought, like, what?
Me. Because I thought that people would accept me more if I had given them that version that was sprinkled in sugar than if I would have just laid out the truth, the naked funnel cake without the sugar. Like, hello. Oh, man.
So step one, folks, lean in. Cotton candy Christianity doesn't work. Jesus is not our life coach.
Ooh. Ooh.
How do we decouple ourselves from that and move in the opposite spirit so that we actually become fully fledged disciples that are being formed in the crucible? And when adversity hits, this is not a conversation about discipleship, but it is to say that disciples are formed in adversity. In other words, adversity shapes us. Struggle can become bread for us to eat. Numbers 14. Joshua and Caleb, they saw giants in the land. Joshua, because he was of a different spirit, said, those giants, bread for us to eat. What I'm saying is, cotton candy Christianity, to where Jesus is our life coach, 5 steps to my best life, does not form in me the muscles of character and enduring faith that when adversity hits our lives, it doesn't crush us. Or number 2, we throw the sugary, syrupy garbage over top of it, and we can't actually recover. Because Jesus didn't act like that. Any thoughts?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sitting here right now, and I'm just taking it in, man.
Well, let me form a question out of this. I don't mean to vent, but folks, you know where I stand.
No,
with all
you
of
go,
this.
man. I love this. Like, I am literally like, I'm gonna walk away from this podcast right here, just like
text me later. I want to hear. Wait. So, Lauren, let me form a question because I want to add value to folks. And my point is this:
I don't know. You're over here
people-
doing the mic drop.
No, whatever. Most people aren't crushed by the crisis itself. They're crushed by the silence that follows it. I want to know, how did you learn how to weave your soul through that? And what, if you're genuinely honest, what were you really mad at the Lord about when the pain stayed longer than you thought it should because you were a quote-unquote rah-rah Christian? That's the question.
That's so good. All right, let's start with unpacking the process. Okay. So the process, right? And I'm laying it out here, y'all. Like I'm 22 years removed from both of my parents dying from fentanyl overdoses within 5 hours of each other, completely oblivious to the fact that either one of them had an addiction problem. Okay. So 10 years, let's go back to 10 years, manila envelope, literally sat dormant, did not get touched, did not get read because, oh, by the way, right, there's the truth on those documents that I knew. When we talk about sugarcoating, like talk about building the armor. It's like, what are you willing to do and what are you willing to not do to avoid? Like avoidance can sometimes be just as bad as like leaning in, right? Like just ignoring. Like I literally ignored because I knew that if I saw that on paper in writing, fact, right? Fact.
Pick your hard. That's what we said earlier.
Yeah,
pick your hard.
There you go. Absolutely. So you start there and really where things started to unpack for me. And again, this is a process. This was not just an overnight. I sat up one night and like, whew, here we go. I do attribute a lot of the unpacking to my auntie Linda, because I'll tell you, like we literally went fisticuffs for years because she would try to gently, lovingly talk about my parents and their struggles with pain medication and their addiction. Oh, I wouldn't even let her go there. You're attacking them. Like, don't even go there. Like, I would get angry and mad and like go to war with her. Literally just go to war. Finally, after about 7 years of going in circles, it was like I just started to slowly like lay my arms down. Like, okay, quit trying. Like, quit. Like, just put them down. It was slow. But ultimately, she helped me to understand and see that my parents aren't defined by how they die, but by how they live their lives. And then that's when that perspective shifted of like, now it's not about just saving and preserving a legacy. It's about building my own. Because what am I doing living in a world where all I'm doing is trying to preserve? Like there's no forward movement here. Literally, I'm taking 10 steps backwards. Constant. And so,
and I think the trauma narrative, if I can interrupt real fast, I think the trauma narrative that you had stored in your subconscious, this is what you said earlier, I had to protect their legacy. That was the narrative that was written.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was it. And so then I'm doing everything in my absolute power to make sure that I protect. So as that perspective started to shift, I've used this word before, and to me, I just like, it is so profound. Like I use the word exonerated, because exonerated, you hear that word a lot in like prison terminology, right? You get put in jail, you get prosecuted for whatever crime that you do, and then you get put in jail and you live in prison, right? And for so many years, I lived in a prison cell internally, inside of myself, because I was not willing to walk towards the truth. And so I literally did everything I could to just stay as far away from it as possible. And, you know, I think about that so much now, because as I've found so much freedom in that truth, in understanding, like, okay, so my parents aren't defined by how they died, but how they live their lives. Like, so what, they died of prescription drug overdoses? Like, literally, we could all go down and literally make a list of all the good we do in our life and all the bad. And everyone's going to be in the same boat in some way, shape, or form. Like, there's going to be good by everybody, and there's going to be absolute, like, by everybody. Like, man, what an exercise that would be. Like, to literally go into the depths of like your history and just be like, okay, name all, okay, like let's compete and see who did the absolute, like what you think is the worst thing you've done. Put it on a piece of paper, throw it in a pile, and like, let's start reading it off. And like, let's just see, like, you're going to suddenly be like, oh, wow. Like, wow, I'm not so bad after all. But it's amazing how we are so trained, especially you use the terminology, cotton candy Christians, like so trained to avoid, because we don't want people to walk through those doors, to see behind the doors, to see that we are all human the way that God created us to be. Like there is, there's just so much to unpack here, but I just feel like we just get so good at, it's like the keeping up with the Joneses. It's like we're constantly striving for acceptance through everything we do to ensure that we are viewed and looked at. And instead of being viewed and looked at in the eyes of God, it's like we're looking for affirmation in all the wrong places. And that is something I have had to teach myself. Like, why am I doing this work? Why am I getting on stage? And I actually was at a Christians Working in Sports conference a couple weeks ago, and one of the messages came from Pastor Mayo Soel. And I mean, it was so brilliant in the fact he talked about being the instrument. Like, an instrument doesn't get played to get the applause. Like, the instrument is not getting the applause, right? We need to be the instrument. Which basically means, like, we don't do what we do because we're looking for everyone to applaud us in it. We do what we do because we're looking for the one man and the person that ultimately we are in relationship with and should be in relationship with 24/7. That's where we get the applause. That's where we do right by him. And if we keep doing this whole, like you said, the cotton candy Christianity of making everything so perfect, and it's like you're walking onto a movie set every day. And then the problem is when people seek that out, and they say, well, hey, that didn't happen for me. enough of this garbage. Bye. I'm out. Like, you wonder why people get so jaded. And I think that's why it's so important to literally be real and unpack and to boldly share the truth and to step into that truth and to acknowledge the truth and to own the truth and to recognize that as not the thing that defines you but refines you. Because as you said, it's like this whole, like, that suit of armor isn't perfection. That suit of armor is like, you know, they talk like you're going to have wounds and scars and all the things. Like, that suit of armor is not going to be pretty and clean and pristine, as it shouldn't be. And I have now flipped my perspective, Chris, into this mindset. Like, no, if I could take back everything that happened with my parents, if they could walk in the room tomorrow and we could have a loving conversation and I could embrace them and just, they would be in my life and be in my son's life and all the things, like, I would take it back in a heartbeat. However, I also realize the gift that it is that I have been sharpened through adversity, and that my gifts have been revealed, I think, in such a profound way because of my willingness to just open up and my willingness to accept the truth and to wholeheartedly believe in the power of adversity can refine us. And it doesn't have to be, you know, roses and waterfalls all the time, and in the beauty, because I truly believe that in the ashes and in the mess of it all. Like, like, if you ain't walking through that, then, and where does gratitude come from, right? Like, you can't tell me that someone that lives that perfect life, or as close to perfect as it can be, like, truly understands gratitude. Truly, truly, truly understands it, feels it, is in the presence of it. Because how could you? If everything is always up here, how do you feel the depths of gratitude when you've literally had this pendulum swing from both sides?
So it makes me think about courage. When you were going through it, what kinds of, quote, encouragement from people made things worse? And what does real presence look like when someone is walking through hell?
Well, I'll tell you this. I mean, I think that because I was the ultimate optimist, the encouragement is always like, oh, you're the fighter. You're the overcomer. You've done it all, Lauren. You are so strong. I look up to you. I can't imagine if I would have gone through this. I could never do it like you. I mean, that's encouraging. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like, I appreciate that. But also, those voices told me, okay, well, I'm the fighter. I'm the overcomer. I sure don't feel like it because inside I'm broken. I'm whittling away because my shame is just suffocating me. But the voices are telling me, stay strong, Lauren, stay strong. So then what did that do? That pushed me even further into, you know, the lies that I was telling myself and everyone around me. I mean, I was literally embracing the lies more than I was embracing the truth. And again, choose your hard, right? Like, I'm in a prison over here, but on the outside, everyone thinks I'm just fine.
In what ways did the breaking in your life actually free you from the things that were never real to begin with?
I mean, it's like a lot of times you just have to, like, burn it all down to, like, get to the ground level and be like, hey, let's we gotta start somewhere. And like, you get so bogged down with the material things and the mess of it all and that house of cards you're talking about. Like, I mean, just burn it all down. And sometimes you just gotta, like, start fresh. And I mean, I will tell you, like, I literally was ready to burn it all down. When my brother died, I was like, I'm done. Like, I don't care about this book. I don't care about this platform. I don't care about the work I'm doing. I could care less. This sucks. Like, this sucks. Like, my mantra in life, fall in love with your story. And I'm literally sitting in the floor of my bedroom with my book, and I have this bracelet, this affirmation bracelet that I created with these gals that they're with presently. And it's just like, it's so great because like it's an opportunity to kind of like bring you where you're at. And it's like this affirmation bracelet. So the idea behind it is to look down and to see this bracelet. I'm in love with my story. And I'm literally sitting in the floor like, how am I supposed to be in love with my story? But it's almost like everything went up in flames. And it was like the thing that got my attention. Like it got my attention. It pulled me away from the things that I thought mattered and put me in front of the things that did matter.
Okay, so then if the Lord meets you in the deepest break, the things, the places that don't matter, and then whispered one truth that still holds your attention today, still holds you together today, what is that?
You know, and I think I have thought of this a lot here probably in the last year or so, because I've gotten asked this question as well. Like, if your parents walked in the room, what would they say? And I think that in so many ways, like I've gone into the depths of this, and even in facing the Lord in these moments, right? Is like you are so loved and you are doing great work, my friend. Like, I think those are the things, and around, like in essence, the thing that I'm reminded of is that no matter what, you are so loved. And no matter what anybody says, or no matter what people don't say, you are walking in your calling. You are doing great work. You are so loved. And I think that has been what's important to me, is to realize that we get so good at chasing. But what if for a moment we just stopped, paused, took a breath, and the whole idea of be where your feet are? Like, your purpose lives in the present. And that is something I have really leaned into. Because I can attest to this, gosh, even just in all the loss that I've faced. And then now, you know, bringing a son into the world, like, it is so easy. It is so easy to forget that, like, time is non-refundable. Like, time is non-refundable. You will never, ever, ever get that back. Oof, and gosh, let me tell you, like, there is a grieving process to that. Like, I literally had my son. He's 2 years old now. And even in the early stages, it's like every time he would grow or he'd upgrade to like the next diaper size, like most people are like celebrating the fact that like, oh, yay, I can't wait till we get out of diapers. And I'm like, no. And it got to the point where like I had this amazing conversation with my therapist about it. She's like, you know, you are a parent. You are brought into this world. You brought this child into this world. And could you imagine life if you didn't progress? Could you imagine life if you just sat there and this baby was the way he was for like an eternity? Like, there would never be any growth. So like the same is for you and me. Like, what if life was just grand and perfect and we weren't challenged in any sort of way? Like, being stagnant. Like, I think you put yourself in a prison if you just level off and stay in that your whole life. And so in so many ways, like recognizing, like bringing my son into this world, I'm like, he is going to grow up. Like, we're all going to grow old. But what are you going to do with this time you have? Because this moment is fleeting. Like every moment in your life is a fleeting moment. Time is non-refundable. So what is it you're going to do with the time you have? And let's just go ahead and name it. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to suck. There's going to be things that are going to hurt. But don't run away from the hurt and the pain. Because again, that's the constant. That is going to be there. But also it gives us the opportunity to find joy and gratitude in the things that shape us and make us who we are, and essentially build up that resilience. And that's really how I came to the idea of shatterproof, is like becoming shatterproof. It's building a life of resilience where no obstacle can stand in your way, building a life of joy and purpose, where in this world, someone can literally take a baseball bat to your life, seemingly shatter it into a million pieces. But if you lean into the Lord, again, he's not going to keep that baseball bat out of your life. Like he's not going to protect you from that. But when things shatter, we all have the ability to find ourselves, find our ground, and take those pieces and piece them back together and create something beautiful. But it doesn't have to be what we imagined it to be. It could be something totally different. And we have to walk in that and know that we all have the ability to become shatterproof.
All right, so we'll lock this conversation down this way. I'm struck by that phrase, time is non-refundable, and it's so true. If this was your last chance to speak to the person today who's still in pieces, still bleeding in the silence, afraid to believe again, what would you say, not to their ears, but to their cracked open heart?
I mean, I will say this, when someone is cracked wide open.
Mm-hmm. That is such a vulnerable place, but it is actually the place where healing happens.
Yeah.
Think about the soil. It's cracked open. And when seed is deposited in soil, it can grow. But what did Jesus say about the dry, rocky soil that's hard and seems self-protected? Nothing can grow. Nothing can heal.
I think about this. So we've talked about this, my mantra being fall in love with your story. But it doesn't just happen. Like falling in love requires something. It requires you to do something. It doesn't just happen. And and if I could take this moment to maybe specifically speak to my mom and dad, maybe even my brother. If I had the opportunity for them to walk through that door again and to sit them down next to me and have a conversation. I think that's the conversation that Jesus is having with me and has had with me and continues to have with me, that you are so loved, and that even in your brokenness, there is redemption, and that you're not disqualified. I think a lot of times we disqualify ourselves, thinking we aren't worthy. And I think in a lot of ways, my family felt disqualified. And that shame and that silence just drove them further away, further into the darkness. And if I could just bring them into the light, because I think we're all made to feel, in a lot of ways, our hardest chapter is our last. But we should never be reduced by our hardest chapter, because sometimes our hardest chapter is the very thing that brings us into the light. And I would just so love to sit down and have that conversation. And you talk about like that cracked open heart, like the gift of freedom when you truly can find the courage. And I say find the courage because I think it takes courage to truly and fully fall in love with your story. That's what I would want to lead my family and to those who are really struggling. That's where I'd lead them to.
I want to read the moment and just say that's sufficient for today. I'm really thankful for you. Thanks for being here.